Alright, whose favorite lift is the bench? Yeah, okay. Normally we see guys liking this one a little more. And females definitely like the squats. So, bench, what's the major muscles working in the bench? Pecs. That press. Now, to think about the bench, first thinking about what we would do if we didn't have this piece of equipment, how we would do the same movement. It's a push, right? It's a push. So if it's a one-handed push or a two-handed push, what happens at this joint when we do that movement? So first off, we got the descent of the bench. What happens here is if you look at my shoulder blade and my arm, when I descend, if I pull my arm back, this is retraction of the scapula. It's coming together. Okay, the problem with the bench is if I have something hard on the platform against my back, it can't move. And the more weight you get, the more you'll get pinned against that bench. So in order to get into the right biomechanical movement plane or pattern, we've got to first retract to our start position, because once we get weight on there, we're going to be pinned and we won't be able to retract. So you'll see a lot of the time people will set up in a very retracted position, very extended thoracic position. Okay, this is because it puts you in the right movement plane or pattern at the bottom of the lift to be safe to push that much weight away. Because otherwise we're going to be here and trying to push, and we're going to get impingement in the shoulder and a damaged shoulder. If you protract in a bench, you're going to hurt yourself. So we want to retract, get into the right position before we bench. So that's what you want to be thinking about as you set up. Now, how do we do that? Well, when we get to the bench, we want retracted shoulder blades. We know that. How do we retract shoulder blades? We pull the rhomboids are a big part of this. They pull in their scapulas together. But also, look at my chest. As I pull in my scapula together, my chest pops out. This is known as thoracic extension. Thoracic spine, part of where your rib cage is, can flex, it can extend. Okay? If it's extending, that's also helping me retract on my shoulder blades. So, retraction of shoulder blades, extension of the thoracic spine, that puts me into anterior tilt at the hips. Posterior tilt, anterior tilt. So, anterior tilt, thoracic extension, retraction of the shoulder blades. Okay, we want all those things happening. That starts at my foot position here. If I was to sit down and go into this bench, is that camera still on me? Okay, cool. So if I'm retracted, I want to set up, I want to pull my shoulder blades together, pops up my chest, I want to anterior tilt on my hips, good, and then I want to pull my toes in as far as I can to create tension throughout my whole body, so I'm a solid foundation to bench from. Now, what I can do in order to really exaggerate all this that I'm trying to do is if I push my heels down, look what happened to my body. From here, if I push my heels down into the ground, this is called extension at the hip. Okay, I push my heels down, my hip wants to come up, I'm anterior tilting more, I'm thoracic extending more, I'm retracting more. So that puts me, that cube in my feet gets me in the right position at my shoulders. Okay, it's all connected. And that's why you'll see this. Now, bearing in mind that if you have pain in your low back, okay, you might not want to be so exaggerate with this. Okay, maybe you don't even put your feet down, you put your feet up to keep your low back straight. But that won't be the strongest position. Okay, we're trying to talk about how you can lift weight here. So there all comes obviously with some gray area. What about hand position? Where do we put our hands? Does anyone know? Shoulder. Okay, slightly wider than shoulder. Okay, it's basically called common width on. Now that is individual to everyone, where you find it, and it will depend on your limb length. We want roughly 45, 60 degrees from the elbow, from the torso. You'll see a lot of times people benching like this. They won't be benching very long like this, because they'll shut their shoulder. Okay, and they'll be out. Okay, if you do this, when we abduct that shoulder, we've got our posterior down, we've also got our rotator cuff muscles all here on our shoulder blade. Now the top rotator cuff muscle is called the supraspinatus, and that's going to basically get impinged. If we abduct here, that impinges that shoulder, and we can't actually press very much. And so you end up getting quite a damaging effect on the shoulder. You might be able to do it for a while, but it will eventually wear away and impinge the shoulder and hurt it. Another thing is we abduct, we turn off, what's the big muscle here? Goes all the way down my back. Our lats, okay? If we abduct, we turn those off. The lats are responsible for pulling the arm down, okay, our big back muscle. If we turn off our lats, what are we not? We're not extending the spine. I just talked about getting the retraction happening in the thoracic extension. We want all of that, so we want the lats turned on. Another component of the lats is they attach into the medial side of my humerus. They come through under my armpit and attach here. What their job is, when they pull, they actually pull my arm out of my socket a little bit. Okay, that's a good thing in the bench because we want mobility. Okay, if it's really tight, we're not going to be able to move. Okay, so we want to be pulled out slightly, pulled down, so that we have more movement in this ball and socket. So, hands are slightly wider. We want to have roughly 45 degrees, so we get both tricep, anterior delt, and pec all working to create this adduction and extension at the shoulder. Going down, I'm slightly wider. I'm going to put my thumb around the bar. We don't do no false grips where thumb's the same side as the fingers. Thumb goes round the bar. Again, width is to do with comfort, limb length. You'll find it, and we can work after this demo on finding what yours is. Lift off, big breath in. Hold it, push the belly out, nice and stable. Heels go to the ground. It puts me into extension. Lifting up. Now, movement path here. It should be diagonal. Okay, it isn't a vertical press. As I come down, the bar comes down my body slightly to nipple or diaphragm level, just below my chest. When I push up, it comes up to around shoulder height where I started. So it's a slightly diagonal path that I'm using. I also want to exaggerate all my shoulder muscles that are turning on to help me here. So in order to do that, I want to pull the bar apart. I want to imagine as if it was an elastic band and I'm pulling laterally on the bar as I descend. I'm creating a lot of tension. Push away laterally. So we're pulling it apart as we come down. Getting everything switched on so it's nice and active and strong. What else could we talk about here? Any questions on this? Let me see if I missed any points that I wanted to cover. So, another part I said, make sure you're driving those heels in the ground. If I was to come by and tap your knee, it shouldn't move. Okay, it should be so driving into the ground that it's solid. Think about like a athletic position in football when we're ready to get tackled or tackle someone. We want to be solid. If you get hit, you can give some force back. That's what you want to be pretending to do in the bench. A stable foundation to push from. If you've got wobble happening here, it's not going to help you being able to press more weight. Okay, so that's all the fundamentals to a bench press. Anyone want a demo? Anyone want to try it?
Yeah, I can try it.
Yeah, come go. Let me wipe off this bench before you get down. Hey Toby. Alright, come out the way. Go lay down right here. Alright, go ahead. Okay, so first off, big chest, shoulder blades need to come down. Okay? Exaggerate that. We want to try to create a small gap in the spine. Bring the feet back a little bit into your body so the heels come off the ground. Okay? Because the first cue I want to do when we start this lift is push the. So now we're looking like we're in a good strong position. Apart each side. Good. Good, big breath in. Go ahead and lift off. Good. Diagonal path to the bottom of the chest. Push the heels to the ground. Good. And push away. Diagonally. Good. Heels to the ground, nice and tight. Good. Up. Good. Good. And you want to just basically practice this with a light weight until you get ready for a heavy weight. Getting that movement path down. Now, the more variation you have, it's going to result in not so heavy of a lift. If you can get that down to be exactly the same every time, you can strengthen those muscles at that angle and you become stronger and stronger and be able to lift more and more weight. Okay, so we know what muscles and the technique to do in a bench. How do we warm it up? What muscles are being used? Toby, did you say something? Chest, right? Pecs? What's the front of the shoulder called? Go ahead, Mitch. Deltoids. Back of the arm. Elbow extensors. Triceps. So we want to warm up chest, anterior delt, triceps. But also don't forget all our stabilizers. Okay, everything that's creating that extension. Everything that's putting us in the right position to be able to push. Okay, so that's your lats, that's your rhomboids, that's your extensors of the spine. So in order to warm up that correctly so we can get everything ready and warm and activated, I would suggest doing some rows. Okay, I really would. When we're pulling into this position, that's a row, right? We're going to row and then we're going to push from it. So without a row, we can't actually get into that first position. The muscles won't be contracted very hard, they won't be very tense. So lat pull downs, lightweight lat pull downs. I don't mean a pull up because it's going to fatigue you. Lightweight lat pull downs that can get a good contraction. I love one that's called a wall angel. Okay, that's one of my favorite exercises. I'll show you against this mirror what a wall angel is. Hopefully I don't make too much of a mess. This is heels, butt, shoulder blades, elbows, wrists against the wall. And then you're moving that as high as you can and down. Most people cannot do this. Okay? So I do make it look easy. It's not. Okay, getting everything extended and externally rotated is important when we come to the bench. Okay, it's important for shoulder health in general. So doing this exercise is very good to warm up that bench. But then after that, we haven't warmed up the shoulders. A push-up would be good if you're strong enough. That might be too fatiguing. If it's too fatiguing, then maybe a wall push-up where we've got less gravity against us. Or grab some lightweight dumbbells, some 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds. Neutral grip. Okay, neutral grip is going to get more activation of triceps and it's going to get a deeper movement. Okay, when we're pronated in a dumbbell press, we're not going to get as deep as if we're neutral. So a neutral grip is going to be better to warm up the bench press. You could even add in a slight pronation as you come up. So we get the depth and then we get the anterior delt activation to pronate at the top. That's another option too. But really, again, it just depends. Where are you tight? What you need warming up? Where's your strengths and weaknesses? And that's individually different. Questions on the bench?